Hey guys, welcome to JReviews, a new show here on the channel where I review games covered on the channel in the past via the JPlays segments. And for today's review, I'll be covering The 13th Doll. Now, The 13th Doll is the fan-made sequel to the 90s games The 7th Guest, which was covered in 1993, and The 11th Hour, which was released in 1995. The game was successfully funded on Kickstarter, surpassing its target goal of $40,000 by an additional $20,000. The game was in development for 4 years before being released on the 31st of October 2019. The starting story to the game is of Tad, who I assume is the 7th guest from the first game, locked up in an asylum after going crazy shortly after fleeing the mansion. He is then instructed by a ghost to trust that the doctor will help him return to the mansion to fix things once and for all. Play then gives players the choice between playing as Tad or as Dr. Richmond. Gameplay is the same in style across both characters, with only the difference in puzzles and rooms that you can access, as well as the FMVs that you get to see being different across both characters. For me, I feel that this game perfectly recaptures the feel of the first game much more than the second, whilst the way you move about is different, which I will go more into later. But it still feels like a 7th guest game, which is what is most important. From beginning to end, it never faltered in this regard. Graphics are moderate. Some areas look great, with nice touches, while others show graphical glitches. You, for example, will see this quite a bit in the Asylum section of the game. I definitely noticed it there, whereas places like the mansion looked great. The graphics are certainly not next-gen level, but I don't think that was ever the intention, and it does not take away from the experience at all, nor should it from you. The FMVs are very well done. Seeing Robert Hirschberg back in the role of Henry Stout was fantastic. The vast majority of the cast performed their roles great. Tad and Dr. Richmond are both performed well. There were some actors who overact a fair bit, but that is half the charm when it comes to FMV. What is FMV without some overacting? The music in the game is good, but not great. Compared to the 7th Guest, which has some really memorable music, the 13th Doll lacks in this department. Nothing really jumps out, and so this could have been improved on. If you look back on games like the 7th Guest, 11th Hour, and especially 7th Guest, that had some music that was quite catchy and would stay with you, like stay in your head afterwards. But in the case of this, there was nothing really that jumped out at me. But that's not to say it was not bad music, it's just, didn't stay with me. Gameplay on one hand is great, since you have the mansion and the puzzles, etc. But then the developers went with a mix of freeform movement, where you can move anywhere, as in via the keyboard, hitting buttons and moving about, like a first-person shooter, to the more traditional click to move in other places, which is more the style of the previous games, where you would click and then the camera would span over to this location. Now, because of the different styles, this creates a disjointed feel, as you never know what you're going to get. As a fan of the previous two games, I would have preferred that they'd stuck with the control scheme of the earlier games of clicking to move. Just as in the previous games, puzzles start out easy enough and then really ramp up. Some of the later ones are devilishly hard and can take hours to work out. The worst of the bunch was the maze section, where you walk around a 3D first-person maze. This really needed a map, as without a guide you have no idea where you are, and this can take ages to get through. On my first playthrough, it took me close to 40 minutes to get through it, which if you watch the JPlays segments, you can see what I'm talking about. This really should have been shortened down. The 7th Guest had a first-person maze as well, and yet this was far better done. I would also add that I found the Tad campaign to be far longer and better than Dr. Richmond's. Tad's side of the game just felt more fleshed out, and you have 3 endings to choose from him compared to only Dr. Richmond's. Dr. Richmond's campaign felt like the hard mode, as the puzzles got quite cryptic quite quickly and took longer to complete. Overall, I found the 13th Doll to be an excellent game that recaptures the feel of the games before. I really think that this should be an official sequel to the previous games before, as it has everything that makes a 7th Guest game, with the mansion, the cheesy FMVs and puzzles, and it just feels like a 7th Guest game. Through and through. It's games like this that I look forward to most on Kickstarter. Games like Shadowrun Returns, Satellite Rain, Time Spinner. All these are things that I've really looked forward to full-fledged and thoroughly enjoyed, and this is another one of those games for me. The only real negative I would give is that this game is very niche and only for a very specific type of gamer. If you've played The Seventh Guest or The 11th Hour, then hell yeah. Or even if you just love puzzles and B-grade horror, then hell yeah. I'd recommend this game to you, but if not, then no I wouldn't. For me though, I absolutely loved it and went back to play through the game again as Dr. Richmond for a second time round, just to see how the game differed. And it does differ, as I've said. You get different rooms you can access. The FMVs differ slightly in that there'll be key moments in the game where both characters are present, like Dr. Richmond and Tad, and you'll see things from the other's perspective. That was really well done. And also just the difference in what you see as you play through it. So overall, I'd give this game a 9 out of 10. It's not perfect, but it's just what I was looking for. And I say that being a completely biased, loving fan of the previous games, which probably gives me some bias towards it. But I think it's a great game. Your experience may differ, but that's mine. Alright, this is Iceman of JReviews signing out. Have a good one.